Chris Lynch News with Airpark Canterbury. Treat your car to a premium car wash for just $10 every weekend.
And David Seymour now joins me. G'day, David. Good to see you. How are you?
Great, thanks, Chris. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. I just want to cover off some news I thought was rather interesting. Did you see this morning the BBC newsreader that went viral, or who went viral for changing the phrase pregnant people to women during a live broadcast, has been found to have breached the Broadcaster Standards Authority over there, or at least their committee from the BBC, for impartiality rules because she made a brief facial expression when altering the script to biological reality. What do you make of that?
Good on her. I think this is really just about being able to observe biological reality. The Enlightenment and the scientific revolution allowed Galileo to look through his telescope and say what he said. He was tortured a bit for doing it, but it was the beginning of a revolution where each person could actually talk about reality as they saw it rather than be disciplined by dogma. And when I look at something like this whole idea of pregnant people, or chest feeding, which is one of my favorites. Well, a little bit of high school science will tell you that we are called mammals because the female of the species have mammary glands, which convert glucose to lactose, which is useful for feeding infants. This is just basic biology. Breasts are real things, and you should be allowed to say that.
Doesn't this just go to show how out of touch some woke executives now are in Britain, but also there's some of that culture war happening here in New Zealand as well. But I think there's a turning point though, isn't there? Seriously, this all comes back to the culture wars.
Yeah, well, look, a good friend of mine had a baby recently, and she happens to be a very highly qualified doctor, and she was outraged at this idea of chest feeding. She said, I know a bit more about biology than you, and I can tell you that you're wrong. But that was a few years back. I don't know now that it would be so controversial for her to say that. I feel like, it really peaked in 2020. There's been a wild ride, but we are getting to the stage where the University of Auckland's dumping its compulsory treaty course. The government's taking treaty obligations out of the Board of Trustees obligations. The history curriculum is going to teach about Maori history. But in the context of many societies throughout history who have gone through various stages of cultural evolution and invented new technologies and so on. So we're starting to get back to that basic Enlightenment principle that I talked about. People are allowed to see things and say things, and there is actually such a thing as objective truth. We don't all have to be cowed the way people were, hundreds of years ago when you get burned at the stake for heresy. We've had a bit of that, but it's going, and we're getting back to the Enlightenment, and it makes me very excited.
David, I want to just quickly pick up on some interesting drama, I suppose you could say, that I saw in Parliament. Well, not drama, but I saw Chloe Swarbrick is back again campaigning about climate change. Yet she and co-leader Maori Davidson and another Green MP have all taken separate flights to London in recent months. How can the Green Party possibly preach cutting emissions while its own leaders continue to rack up air miles? This is the height of hypocrisy, isn't it?
The thing about Chloe is she will make an argument that if she wants to change the world, then she needs to live in the world. And you could say that, living in the world as a senior politician, which I guess, she's been there for a while, sometimes involves traveling long distance. So let's just sort of let her, give her that. So, she does actually have to be part of it. My question is, why'd you go business class? She's always talking about soaking the rich and taxing them, and a few people have too much money. You can go to England without going business class. I went in June to debate in Oxford. I spent my own money, and I went economy class, and it wasn't great. I've got to say, I wouldn't rush to do it again, but I managed it, and I emitted half as much carbon dioxide as Chloe, and that's before you get on to the emissions from her word salads. So my question is, okay, Chloe, you're a leader in a political party. You've got to travel sometimes. How's it possible I can do it business class and so I can go economy class and you have to go business? That's my question, and I just call it business class now.
Yeah, fair enough too. David, there's been a strong reaction, well, from the unions only, to the education sector over the government's removal of the school obligations to give effect to the treaty. But isn't this really about freeing up teachers to focus on core learning?
Well, it's, Erica Stanford, I think, has made a very interesting point about this, that the Crown signed the treaty and the Crown has obligations under the treaty. We can have a debate about what those are, but let's park that for now. But not every citizen, not every school board, not every community group has obligations under the treaty. So let's just park what the obligations are and ask who has them. And Eric has made the point that the Crown has the obligation, but not every local school board has obligations under the treaty. So that's kind of an interesting argument she's made, and I quite like it. The second point I would make is that we have in this country declining attendance over the last 15 years or so, although I'm proud to say it's improved. We're really sharply falling educational achievement in things that actually matter, such as reading, writing, and maths, although I'm proud to say that they have risen a bit recently. But here's the thing. Being able to read, write, do sums, and have some grasp of science and our place in the world, that is needed regardless of your culture. This is not a universal thing. And I was thinking about this the other day, what sort of slogan we should have. And I would say that the ACT Party is the party for Maori who are interested in education, the economy, and having a house. The other guys, the Maori Party, they're not offering that. We're offering more to Maori than they are.
Well, they're offering nothing but scraps. We'll get to that shortly. But some critics, of course, will say that this whole change will erase Māori identity from education. But then again, yet schools are still required to offer te reo Māori, aren't they? Isn't the balance already in place?
Well, it's actually about choice versus compulsion. So, what's been put in the Education Act, and this has been missed, is it actually says that the school board should try to reflect all of the cultural diversity of New Zealand. They should also make Maori language available for parents who want it. They should also ensure that Maori students succeed and achieve. Now, I would say it should just be all students, frankly, but that's what it now says. If you want to have mataranga Māori, tikanga Māori, te reo Māori, you have every choice to do that. I mean, I myself am responsible for Te Rito, that's a charter school in the far north, Te Atatika, which is a charter school in Hawke's Bay, Tipene, Old St. Stephen's in South Auckland. I'm in favour of choice. I'm in favour of cherishing the Māori language and culture. What I'm not in favour of is compulsion.
I thought it was quite interesting in an interview, David, the School Board Association President Meredith Kennett couldn't actually explain how removing the so-called treaty obligations affects attendance or achievement. She kept saying it's about understanding the whole child. It was all wish-washy, it was word salad stuff. What does that say?
Well, I would bet she doesn't believe it. She doesn't understand it. She's probably one of many people I've heard from this week who said, thank God, I've thought this, but I'm too afraid to say anything. What I find really interesting is that Kiwis are basically fair-minded people who don't like conflict if they can avoid it. And so when you get a few bullying people in an organisation that say, if you don't do this, you don't care about the past and you're marginalising Māori and you're racist and all the rest, people say, oh, God, okay, you do another karakia, is that enough? Which is just rubbish. Now, I can almost guarantee, I don't know this woman, I don't know anything about her, but if she's getting on and fudging like that, then I suspect she's one of these people who has been bullied and cajoled into holding a set of beliefs that she never actually believed. And that's why when she's asked the basic question, she can't answer it.
David, speaking of the Maori parties, it's continual infighting, walkouts, leadership struggles. This is the beginning of the end, isn't it, for them, the party itself?
I have no idea, and I just don't care. All I'll say is that these guys have more kupapa, which means traitors, than kaupapa, which means a policy agenda for a better New Zealand. And that's why I say the ACT Party's done far more for Māori than Te Pāti Māori ever will.
David Seymour, appreciate your time this morning in the car. Thank you.
No worries. I'll catch you later.